My name is Miranda, and I'll be facilitating today, and we're going to get started. I also have Daniel here with me, and he'll be taking any questions that you have along the way. And if you want to just put them in the chat box, he'll get them to me, and I'll answer them either as I go or right at the end when we're all done. So let's get going. So what is Mathology? Mathology is a set of K-8, both print and digital resources rooted in academic research, best practices, and co-created with classroom teachers all across Canada. We use the learning progression that you see in the center, the blue document, that underpins all of the resources. So Mathology is something that helps you determine where your students are and what their next steps might be in learning in mathematics. It helps to engage students at all levels while building confidence in their math skills and instills a love of math through those really rich activities that are lots of fun, as well as stories. There is job-embedded professional learning along the way, and all of the materials have been adapted for French immersion. So when we started thinking about Mathology, we thought about the math teaching journey, and we know that it's a really time-consuming, very multi-step process from when you begin thinking about long-range planning, thinking about what your year might look like, to your short-term planning, your day-to-day, and then your teaching and your preparation, not just at a week glance, but on a daily glance. Also to help in the moment with the teaching of day-to-day, as well as assessing and tracking student learning, bringing you to reporting, as well as professional learning all along the way. So Mathology is helping to serve the math teaching journey. So what we've done is we've taken all the classroom activity kits and the math little books, and we streamlined it to help you manage some of those components and use them to help you more easily plan, more easily teach, and assess, all while learning along the way. And so all of it is grounded in the Pearson learning progression, which is really just a continuum or a trajectory of learning that students go through as they develop deeper understanding of mathematics. Mathology.ca is the digital online tool. It brings together the activity kits and the little books all into one digital format that allows you to access those rich activities really easily. The 5 key functionalities that it's helping you with would be to search, to help you with planning, to help with teaching, assess and track student learning, as well as professional learning. Any questions so far before I keep moving? All right, so let's keep going. We're going to go take a look right in Mathology.ca. So Mathology lets you sign in and register with either a Google account or Microsoft, or you can register with an email. Sorry about that. There we go. All right, so once you're in, you land on the home page. And at the home page, you are able to search in 3 different ways. You can search based on a keyword, something like, oh, hang on 2 seconds. For some reason, I can't. There, I think we're good now. So it allows you to search in 3 different ways. You can search by the keyword that you're looking for. You can search by curriculum, as well as the learning progression. So for example, if you are working on addition, you might put in addition into the search panel, and right away you can see all the activities and little books that are addressing addition. But we know that that's a lot of results. So from there, you can narrow it down to what grade you're looking for. Currently, K and 1 are in the platform, and grade 2 is on its way. Same goes for the French platform, where grade 1 will be ready in the fall. From here, you can narrow it down to the grade. You can also narrow it down to either the type of activity that you're looking for or a little book, as well as a strand. So something like addition, we know might live in a variety of different strands, so you may narrow it down from there. Another way to search might be through the curriculum. So you may have a particular overall expectation in mind. You may go to that expectation. Maybe you're working on measurement right now, and you're working specifically on measurement relationships. You may go in there and select one by using the magnifying glass, and there you get your different results for measurement. And in this case, comparing and ordering comes right up to the top. The last way is via the progression, and the learning progression really just gets us to think about the big ideas. And so in this case, it would be organized by the big idea and then the conceptual threads, something like applying the principles of counting. I can see some of the principles of counting, and then same way, hit the magnifying glass and get a search. Once I've determined what lesson I'd like to use, I can go in and select the lesson and have at a quick glance about what the lesson's all about, know what kind of content my students might need to have in order to be successful in this lesson, as well as any of the curriculum expectations, cross-strand connections, processes that are being met, as well as the learning progression like I mentioned before. In this case, we're applying the principles of counting. And if you're looking for what kind of skills a student might need beforehand, it'll be on the left, and skills that will follow this will be on the right. These arrows allow you to continue and go a little bit further and backwards. The one that's highlighted is the one that's being focused on during this particular lesson. So I've determined that I really enjoy counting to 50. This activity makes sense to me, so I go into the details to get a little bit more information. For those of you that are familiar with the activity cards, this is just a mirror of the activity card. And for those of you that are not, in the print version, this looks very similar. But one key feature that you have on dossier is that you're able to access both the PDF and Word version that you can adapt if you need to right there on the spot. You also have the probing questions that will be there that you can use alongside the activity, so you know what you might be working on and how to differentiate that particular task. And as you go around and work with different students, you might ask some of these questions, as well as keeping in mind what you might be looking for. From here, we have projectable cards. So you might do an example as a whole class and record some of your thinking using a smartboard, or you might just take a look to see what might this activity look like when it's complete. And so there are completed cards always there for you as a teacher, so that you know what that might look like in the end based on what students are doing. We also have the teacher card and the back of the teacher card available as well. From here, we have interactive tools, things that you might use to help facilitate your instruction, things like a 10 frame or counters. In here, if I click on the 10 frame tool, I have access to pull out a variety of different things, like 5 counters at a time into the 10 frame, or I could even pull out one at a time, and so on and so forth. And I can use this to help facilitate some of the conversation I might be having with my class. I may have read all of this and still not had a really clear idea, or I might be unsure of what exactly to focus on in consolidation. From here, I have options to click on 2 different types of videos. The learning highlight video is a video that is attached to every single lesson of the activity cards, and it'll give me a few tips of things I might want to look out for as my students are working on the task or as I'm consolidating. And I'll give you a quick listen right now to one of them. All of them are around 1 minute.
You've watched your students complete the actions on the card. Now they've taken all these counters and made one large pile, and it's time to find how many in total. Some of your students may feel comfortable counting all the counters by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Others may organize the pile into small, equal-sized piles to help them skip count. 5, 10, 15, 20. Since students are working with larger numbers, they may all benefit from using a 10 frame to organize their counters. Your students might use the 10 frame differently. Do they fill one row at a time? Or do they fill one column at a time? Do they know to fill a 10 frame before moving on to the next 10 frame? Do students trust that a full 10 frame represents 10? Or do they count by ones every time? Those students who are familiar with skip counting may count by twos, by fives, or by tens, depending on how they fill the 10 frame. Discuss how all these different ways of organizing counters on a 10 frame lead to the same total.
So that video is helping you at the lesson level, but we also have ones that give you a bigger picture. For example, in this video on the right-hand side, Kyle would talk to you about counting and the any key vocabulary, manipulatives that you might want to think about, and any other models that you might want to include. And these videos are sitting at the more of a unit or big idea level, and they're ranging at about they're sitting at about 5 minutes, and those are attached on always on the right-hand side. Any questions so far about searching or the teaching component or professional learning before I keep going? All right, so once you've decided to use this activity, you're familiar with some anticipated ways that students might solve the problems or work on the tasks. There's also the assessment component. So in here, I can select my classroom. In this case, I can upload all of my students in one place. And then as I observe on perhaps an iPad, I might highlight a student and drop them into a particular strategy that I may have seen them do. Maybe I saw two students doing the same strategy. I can highlight them and drop them in at the same time. Note that there's a space that I can add a little comment that I might have seen specific to Paul or to Mandy that I can include in there as well. For each one of these strategies and behaviors, there's also a next step attached to it in the moment that'll allow you to provide some tips to a student or make some suggestions on the spot. If for some reason there are additional next steps, in this case, an intervention might be needed. These are all linked that you can click on and go over to the intervention task. And here's an opportunity for you to either do a mini lesson or a practice to help students that are having difficulty understanding the order in which objects are counting, that it doesn't matter which way you start or which number you start with. So that might be an activity that you might look at. Another way to access that is not just through the next step panel, but in the related resources. In here, all the mini lessons exist that are either on grade, an intervention, or an extension. And in each case, you have the option for a mini lesson that might be whole class or small group, as well as some additional practice, and these are all printable from that spot. There's also an area for misconceptions. So something that you might be thinking about before you head into the lesson or while the student's displaying this behavior, and it'll give you some tips of what to do on the spot. After the lesson, there are additional things you might want to consider, both in class as well as sending home. And again, this is printable and modifiable as you want to make maybe your own specific notes that you send home to parents. Every lesson has a word wall included with it, and in some cases it'll just be a definition. Other times there'll be a visual example. For example, if I was in a geometry lesson, there might be an example including a visual. From there are related lessons. So currently I'm working on counting to 50, but if I want, I also have options to work on counting to 20, counting on and back, as well as counting ordinal numbers. And from here, I can go in either direction to a consolidation task or to another little book that might be below grade or on grade that are working on the same expectations. If I click on one of these books, I have the option to see the format in a very similar way. You get the first page that's going to tell you about the book, same with the math focus, the curriculum, and any details that you might need for the learning progression. From here, when you're in the details page, you have a link right here to the storybook that you can project and listen to with your class. All of these will have an audio button to play, and they'll stop at the end of each page.
Wilea loves to go to the park. Grandma loves to take her. Tell me what you see, says Grandma. Wilea looks around.
So for each one of these books, you have the projectable option that you can read through with your students, each with different authors, different voices, allows you to change it up. So as you've been assessing, perhaps you've done 4 or 5, maybe 10 lessons. The analytics is a section that allows you to take a look at how your whole class is doing as well as how your individual students are doing. In this case, there are several tasks that are that have been worked or that your class is working on. For example, the mode is highlighted. That's where the majority of your students are laying are sitting. As far as the back of the card go, these are the 4 boxes that we saw earlier on. So for example, if I click on this, I see these 4 boxes and I see where the 2 students are sitting. If perhaps the student was here and I go back to the analytics, then now that student's been moved. And so you can see that. This works on a red light, green light system. In this example, it's not very different, but let me grab a grade 2 example. Maybe I'll go back into grade 1 and I'll play around with some of these. Just as an example for you, if we had counting on and everyone sat in the last box, for example, I could go back into my class analytics and it should adapt so that I can see that all of my students are on track, and vice versa if I put all of my students in the other box, or if this data set is small, but we know that as there's more and more students, you're going to see that some of them will be red, some of them will be green, and some of them will be orange. All of these are time-stamped so that we know when I've made adjustments. So today's date is here. I may have done this task twice, and it will keep a stamp on how the students are doing over time. As far as the student view goes, I can select a student, Paul, and I can see that Paul's on track as far as ordinal numbers go, but he needs a little bit more work on more or less and counting to 50. In addition, I might be writing report cards. So this is report card time. You might be looking at the curriculum view. Take a look at the overall expectations for a particular strand. Perhaps it's number that you're working on. I see really quickly that I've done 1 assessment under this overall expectation, 2 over here, and 1 in operation sense. So if I pull down that expectation, I can see 2 things that Paul's been working on that work towards counting, and I know that he's on track in 1 and in progress on another, and I can gain a better sense after several different tasks that he's completed and get a better sense of how he's doing based on the majority of his tasks. Any questions about that so far? So you can take a look at the curriculum view and the student view. This curriculum view in both your class and your students. So as a curriculum view for my whole class, I know that I've done a few more activities, but maybe not all of them I've assessed with Paul. If I unclick this, this will show me all the activities and know which ones I haven't done any or kept track of any assessments in those particular areas. And I can highlight the ones that I have, and that will adjust. Once you get very familiar with this and you play around with lessons at a time and get yourself a bit more familiar, you might be thinking about planning. So there are 2 different ways to think about creating plans. We have 3 sample pathways in here as well, but you can also create your own from scratch. For now, I'm going to go in and use one of the sample plans. I might take a look and say, okay, this makes sense to me. I like starting with counting and moving to comparing and ordering and then jumping into patterns. Once I decide that this is a good path for me, I can go in, just name it, save it, and once I've saved it, I now have the option to be able to adjust and reorganize. Maybe I want to do one activity, another activity, and then do a story and move that down, and it'll adjust. You can also use the arrows up and down, and you can write comments in the box if you want to make notes about things that you've learned about that story as you go. We've got favorites sitting on the right-hand side, things that you might have made a note of that you want to come back to, maybe more frequently, or that you've pinned perhaps for your week. And you can also add non-mathology lessons, things that you've used over and over again that you know work really well and that you love to do. That can go and be built into your lesson as well. You can rename all of these lessons, edit, and also delete any lesson that you're looking for. The pin puts it on your very front homepage. Here in the 3 dots, based on the plan that's made, you can see what curriculum has been covered based on the plan that you've developed, a material list, things, manipulatives that you might want to gather as you go through your plan. You can share it with colleagues that also have access to Mathology.ca, and you can export to a doc if you prefer to write notes by hand and make additional changes in a document. In here as well is the help function, and it keeps all of the tutorials, things about how-to videos, if you want to get started, all of those are in the help panel as well. Any other questions from here? All right, we'll keep going. So let me jump here. Mathology.ca is housing a lot of things, and like I mentioned before, grade 1 is already in there. That includes 101 different math lessons from the activity kit, an additional 34 books that you have access to from K and 1, all living on that learning progression, as well as over 100 professional learning videos that are attached that you got a chance to see, both the 1-minute day-to-day videos and then the bigger picture videos. Mathology, grade 1 will be coming in the fall, as well as grade 2 will be available in the fall as well. And in grade 2, you have over 100, oh, no, not over, exactly 185 math lessons from the activity kit, another 38 grade 1 and 2 Mathology little books, all grounded on that learning progression, plus another 160 professional learning videos. Grade 3 and 4 is expected to come fall of 2020. As far as pricing goes, currently there are 45-day trials, and the 1-year subscription per teacher is $140. A 5-year subscription is available at a 5% discount at $665 for the 5 years. There's also bundle pricing. Additional 5% and 10% discounts will be available when little books or activity kits have already been purchased and you're adding on Mathology.ca. If you're looking to see more and you want to play around with it a little bit more, you've got the option for free trials at etr.mathology.ca. If you've already completed a trial, you need more information, you have access to the help at mathology.ca. And if, actually, today's our last session. So if you're looking for more sessions, please let us know in the chat and we can see about building some more. Any other questions or any other examples that you'd like to see specifically in Mathology.ca that I can run through? And just to let you know that all of this has been recorded, so if you like what you saw and you want to share it with a friend, all of this is going to be recorded and you'll get that in an email tomorrow, and then you can share that on with friends. All right, so I'm going to leave this page up. And I'll leave the option for any chats for another few minutes. We'll go jump to this page. For more information, here are your contact names for your different regions, and I'll leave this up and the chat panel up. And if you have any more questions, feel free to type them in. I'll be here for a little while longer, and we can answer anything that you might want to know a little bit more about. Thanks so much. Go out, enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you again. Oh, we have a question from Catherine. Catherine's wondering, will there be kindergarten boxes coming out or just the little books? So far, they're just the little books. Some people are using the activity kit cards that you see on Mathology.ca with the kindergartens. All of those cards are able to be printed as well, but you just need to be thinking about what card you might be using to meet the expectations of your kindergarten class. Donna's asking, if we don't have the little books, is the electronic trial enough, or do you need to supplement? So the little books covers majority of the expectations, depending on the province. You have access to all of the little books in projectable form, as well as additional notes on Mathology.ca that you can use in addition to those little books that you're finding there. Tina's asking, are any school boards currently using this program? So there are lots. We have your contact person. You can email them, and they might be able to connect you with different boards that are trialing it, either in the print form or the digital form, that might be able to connect you with somebody else that might be in your neighborhood or in your district.